915 Talk is a production of Desert Voice Media. You can visit desertvoice.media to learn more.
915 TALK.
The world is looking at El Paso.
What will we say to the world? From the KELP studio in El Paso, this is 915 Talk.
And now your host.
Good afternoon, listening friends. This is Andy Frecka, the host of 915 Talk. You might remember, if you've been listening attentively, that in recent weeks I did an interview with Steve Schwetz, who is the chairman of the board and the host of Through the Bible with Dr. J. Verna McGee, which I know many of you listen to on KELP radio. After the interview, Steve had heard a little bit about my past as a missionary in Russia, and he said, Andy, I want to interview you. And I thought, well, I don't know what to say about that. And he said, no, I'm serious. And so I took him up on his offer. And today I won't be the host. I will be the one being interviewed. I hope you enjoy and learn from the story of what God has done in my life. He has truly been faithful. He is my helper. And it is such a joy to now share this journey with you here in the borderland. So without further ado, here is my interview with Steve Schwetz. Steve, welcome to 915 Talk.
Andy, we had a conversation about a week ago, and just the script was flipped, and you were talking and interviewing me. And through that process, I found out that you're a pretty interesting guy, and you have a wonderful story that I would love to hear more about. And I'm thinking other people would like to hear it as well.
Yeah, well, if you're up for the challenge, because you asked me, you said, has anyone ever interviewed you? And I said, well, a couple people tried, but I always ended up interviewing them. So
oh well, okay, I'll pull the alpha male and take control then if that ends up being a problem.
Go for it.
Okay, so I know that the first thing that here I don't typically get interviewed by people who have been in a U.S. radio station that have spent a significant amount of time being a missionary in Russia and being an entrepreneur in Russia, which in some ways I would think would be an oxymoron in a communist state to be entrepreneurial in anything other than maybe standing in line. That's my impression. So backing up, give me the story of Andy Frecka up to the point of deciding, hey, I even coming to Christ. So how did it start? Right. You were born what? How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, I was born and raised in Ohio, Northeast Ohio, Akron, Cleveland area, Christian family. Grew up in retrospect. What a great church I grew up in. Just people who really love the Lord. We're doing community together. And I was just thinking about that this morning. If you're in that situation where you're in a great community, enjoy it, because it might not always be that way. So make the most of it. But it was the denomination was the Christian Missionary Alliance. So missions was a big part of the church. And my story of coming to Christ is kind of a little bit amusing because it was a backyard Bible club. I was 5 years old, and I remember they were talking about how we have all sinned, and I felt so convicted.
Wow, as a 5-year-old.
Yes, and they said, well, just pray and Jesus will forgive you. And I remember just praying and thinking at the age of 5, someday I'm going to tell this story when I get older, and people won't believe that I understood what was happening.
Yeah, that is 5 is very early, but that's great. So from that point, you placed your faith in Christ, saw your need for salvation, repented of all of the horrible sins you had committed by the age of 5. Right. That tricycle that you took from that kid on the playground. Right. But still, that brings up a good point that all of us, regardless of where we're at, are in need of a savior and to repent of our sins. So praise the Lord, you did it at 5.
Yeah, amen, and praise the Lord that he forgave me for all my sins, both past, present, and future. At the age of 5.
Yeah, he's probably saving you more on credit that time.
Yeah. That's right. But growing up in the Christian Missionary Alliance Church, the the big event every year was the missions conference. So that's the world I grew up in. I remember we'd have these missionaries come in for a week every year, and the church would get together every night during that week to listen to the missionaries.
Yeah.
And the week would start off with the Parade of the Nations. It was a big deal. All these flags coming through our little church and everyone excited. And I can remember, I think the missionary was from Ecuador, somewhere in South America, but he was talking about how he's taken his canoe through the jungle and reaching people for Christ. And I was probably 8 or 9 at that time. And I was thinking, wow, wouldn't that be amazing to have a life like that? And also at that time, my mother was we didn't have a TV in the house.
Wow.
So yeah, well we did. It was black and white, and it was in the back of the closet. I think it was in the case of nuclear attack, we would get, I don't know, instructions from the White House,
from whoever. Yeah,
exactly. But
that's interesting, because like my youngest son, who's 29, their TV is in the closet and they don't use it. And that's, I think, more with conscientious Christian parents today. That's probably that's not such a radical thought. But back in that day, that I don't think very many Christians did that. Decided we're not watching TV and it's going in the closet.
Yeah. We had none of that. But my mom would read to us, and one of the books she would read to us, it was actually a series. It was about this young boy who she called Ivan. And I found out, of course, when I moved to Russia, that it's Ivan. But Ivan was this young boy in the Soviet Union. So this is the 80s when she's reading us this book. And he's a boy, and his dad is a leader in the underground church. They're behind the Iron Curtain. You know, they're smuggling Bibles, having to meet out in the forest, you know, all these kind of things. And I'm listening to this book and I'm thinking, wouldn't it be great to go and help Ivan? That would be impossible because it's the 1980s and it's the Soviet Union, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, fast forward to my teenage years. I never, went into major rebellion or anything like that. But I did have kind of jelly between my ears, and, I was trying to figure life out. And I kind of had a reputation in high school for being a little bit, I don't know, crazy. I would, do things like get everyone to attempt cow tipping, things like that.
It is Ohio, after all. So
exactly. But
you talk about jelly between your brains. I call it particularly the teenage boy brain is like a piece of Swiss cheese with a bunch of holes in it. And as it grows and hits its 20s, it starts filling in those holes and solidifies. So that's a similar picture.
Right.
So you're getting your crew to cow tip and do other stuff like that, but you're still.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna do, and after high school, and long story short, I decided that I was gonna buy a van. That was my plan, and go drifting and find myself, and I thought that was really deep, and I guess I was a little like slow for my time. It was a little bit hippie of me to have this plan. It wasn't a plan for rebellion or anything like that. It was just like, I'm going to hit the road and find odd jobs and figure this thing out. Well, I had the whole plan set up, and someone handed me a pamphlet for a discipleship school, and someone else handed me a book about hearing the voice of God. Now, my church, I'm sure growing up, said something about hearing the voice of God, but I missed it all. And I'm reading this book, and I'm like, well, wow, like God will speak to me. This is pretty amazing. And I thought, well, and I just want to be clear, I'm not doing a teaching right now. I'm telling a story, I'm not asking anyone.
So you're not saying go home and do this now.
Absolutely not. So I was like, well, God, if you want to speak to me, you could give me a verse from the Bible. And Matthew 10:39 came into my mind, and I look it up, and it says, whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. And I was absolutely floored, because my whole plan was to go find myself. And so then I went all in and sold everything, which was my bicycle, which was a big deal to me. It was a cool bike, Cannondale, kind of racing bike. Yeah. And my car, and I bought a one-way ticket to East Texas. For those who are familiar with the name Keith Green, I did the discipleship school there at Last Days Ministries.
Okay, I didn't even know he had a discipleship school. I just knew Keith Green as the performer and the gospel singer. Yeah.
So I'm there in East Texas, kind of as my mom would tell people, getting the rough edges taken off.
Was that from how far after you graduated high school to when you landed in East Texas at the school?
Well, I graduated in June. The day after graduation, my best friend and I drove from Ohio to Washington State, went on a bicycle trip, Washington, Idaho, Montana, British Columbia, and Alberta. Then we drove to Seattle down 101, the Pacific Coast Highway to LA, from LA to New Orleans and back to Ohio. That was like
your graduation trip. Your big adventure.
Right. And it was after that I heard about this discipleship course and had this kind of experience reading this book. And I was in Texas, I think it was late September. So it was just 3 months later.
Wow. That's great. Okay. So then you go to, and is it a discipleship program, discipleship school? How long did it last? Kind of what was the curriculum?
Right. So it was 3 months. A lot of it was similar to what I'd read in the book. It was hearing the voice of God. A lot of it was also getting to know God's character, also dealing with issues in your life, just doing life together. It was only 3 months. And then after that, you go 2 months on an international outreach. And so we were given 4 choices of, and I should probably add, hopefully my kids aren't listening to this, but.
They will.
Yeah. But I continued to have jelly between my ears during those 3 months. I'm out there on the Keith Green Last Days Ministries. It's hundreds of acres. And I sensed there was a spirit of confusion. And so I decided to combat it. I went to Walmart and bought some spray paint and got some friends. And in the middle of the night, we sneaked into the cow pasture. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny to write cow on the side of the cow? and then like write tree on the tree, and then everyone wakes up in the morning. Yeah, exactly. And then in the morning, there will no longer be this spirit of confusion. I thought that would be like the funniest thing ever. But I didn't think through one thing, and that was I got some guys out there. We're all in the middle of this herd of cows. It's 2 a.m. It's quiet. And as soon as we started spraying, the cows all panicked. And instead of running away, I don't know why, they all started circling around us.
Oh,
it was pretty scary, but we made it out. So I'm during the day getting the rough edges worn off, and at night I'm still dealing with some things.
Okay, how do you get spray paint off of a cow, Andy?
Well, we never got any on, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. we were highly unsuccessful.
God being gracious, both protecting the cows and you from whatever retribution would come from the cow owner. Because I can tell you, as an older man now, I would not be happy if I was a cattleman and you sprayed my cows with cow.
Yeah, absolutely not. It was if any kids are listening, this is not a good example.
Don't try this at home.
How to live your life. So we were given 4 options of where to go on outreach, and the outreach was going to be 8 weeks long. And so the options that were given to us were visiting, I think it was some reservations, Native Americans, South Africa, China, or Russia. And and I'm looking at the options and I'm praying and I'm really trying to do it right. As off base as I might have been on many things, I was really trying to get this right. And it was like, I don't know what I was expecting to go outside and see clouds in the shape of China or what. But that was kind of like the style of teaching, and it felt like to me anyway. And so I'm trying to figure this out, and I'm like hearing nothing. And so I'm meeting with one of my mentors there, and they said, well, don't worry about it. God's not going to punish you for choosing the wrong one. Just choose one. And so I'm like, okay. So I think, well, I've already been to America, so I don't want to go to America. I don't want to go to South Africa because that's just going to be, some lukewarm, spew you out of my mouth, beach outreach. I want something that's really, really a challenge. And so I decided I was going to go to China. And this was my plan. And then the morning comes, we're sitting in a circle and they're going around, who's going where? And they come to me, Andy, where are you going? And I said, Russia. I have no idea where that came from.
Wow.
And they're like, okay. And they write it down. I said, well, I guess I'm going to Russia now.
Russia.
Yeah. So that's how I went the first time. It was 19. So we went, I think we arrived New Year's Eve, 1994. And so we'd been through 3 months of training. So we were ready to go and serve the masses in Russia.
Yeah. Fully equipped. How many people? How many people went with you? Like, what was the team like?
I believe our team was like maybe 15 with 3 or 4 staff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty sizable group.
Yeah.
So where did you go? So you get on a plane, fly to Russia. You now land where? Are you in Moscow or?
Yeah. So we land in Moscow, and then we were going to a city. It's called Perm. Perm is in the Ural Mountain region. The Ural Mountains are the mountain range that extend north to south, kind of central Russia, that divide Europe from Asia. So that's the area. It's kind of a dot in the middle of Russia. It's an industrial city of 1 million people that no one's ever heard of.
Okay. And do they speak Russian? I know Kars is spoken. Central Asian Russian something. I don't know if there's a different version of Russian there or no. Is it?
No, just straight up Russian. Yeah. So we flew into Moscow. Then we got a train. It's about 24 hours to Perm.
Yeah.
And we were there. And this is the middle of the winter. It was minus 40. And some people ask Celsius or Fahrenheit, and 40 is where those two numbers intersect, negative 40.
Wow. So it's cold either way.
Yeah, exactly.
Regardless of your regardless of your numerical system, your numbering system there.
Right. So, I need to add this because this is so great. I will boast of my weaknesses so that the power of Christ will rest on me.
Okay.
So there was an American living in Perm at that time who was hosting us. And he told me sometime later, this was the day of, fax, not email.
Right.
And he said he received a fax. It was like, it's a great team coming. You'll have a great time with them. There's just one guy you need to be careful of. He's going to create problems.
And it was you?
Yeah, it was me. It
was a cow tipper from Ohio. He's a problem.
Exactly. So we're there. We're staying in this. It wasn't. So it was like I'll call it a hostel. It was not hostile, just hostel, like a cheap hotel. And it was full of people. I'll just put it this way: who were employed in various professions. But one of the main professions was truck driver. And these truck drivers were, in retrospect, I can't say for sure, but I think they were from the Caucasus in the south. So places like Armenia, Georgia, maybe, Chechnya, Abkhazia, places like this. And it was a wild time. There was one shower in the hotel, and the girls on the team, when they went to the shower, they had to have someone guard.
Oh my goodness, the door.
Yeah. So it was a wild time in Russia. Russia was out of control. They were looking to the future. Communism had fallen just 4 years previous.
Yeah.
And here we are. We show up, and it's the craziest thing. I got so sick those 8 weeks. I had I'll say for the radio, explosive digestive issues.
Yes.
And I had lost so much weight. I was down to I was a skeleton. And the digestive issues were extremely painful. It felt like someone was just putting a knife in my stomach, and at points I thought I was going to pass out from the pain.
Oh,
And it's freezing cold outside, and I just absolutely fell in love with Russia and decided it was funny because
I think I would have fallen in love with Ohio at that point.
yeah, well, exactly. And I'm having this prayer time, and I'm like, God, you know my heart, and you know, you, you- I don't want to be selfish about this, but could I come back to Russia? And it just the sense I received from him was, people don't normally have these desires, so you can rest assured it's from me.
Wow. So you were there for 8 weeks.
Right.
So when you weren't experiencing your digestive issues, what was, and freezing to death, and guarding your female counterparts in the shower so that they weren't accosted by truck drivers from wherever. What were you doing? What were your days like?
Right. So we had, with the organization I was with, had made an agreement with the local Center for Prevention of AIDS.
Okay.
And so we were giving seminars in the local schools mainly, but also orphanages, even juvenile prisons, places like this, on what a healthy lifestyle is. And of course, our message was abstinence. There'll be some Russian doctors with us who would sometimes give other options, but it was a great way for us to connect with young people. And then what we did is we would invite them to a coffee house that we would have in the evenings. And the coffee house was just a place we rented, and it was free coffee and tea. And young people would come, and they would want to practice their English, and we also had translators, and it was actually quite successful. We'd have a couple hundred young people there almost every evening, and we're there just sharing our faith with them, talking about life with them. And
Wow.
And in the middle of that, we were also so we were invited to a gay discotheque, and that was an interesting story too, because they were like, "Who wants to preach?" And I was like, "I want to preach," and of course, not thinking about any kind of consequences. That's how I've lived much of my life. So,
Okay, wait a minute. Who sets up so that you can preach at a gay discotheque?
it was
I mean-
the Center for Prevention of AIDS.
Okay.
Yes,
And
so
that's probably a good place to go if you're trying to prevent AIDS, would be a gay discotheque.
So it was midnight, and they put us in this van, and it was like top secret where we're going, so we wouldn't know where it was. We wouldn't be able to tell anyone later.
Yeah.
And so it's midnight. Again, it's midnight. It's dark. It's snowy outside. The windows are frosted over. They're like turning kind of weird so that we can't figure out where it is. And they open up the doors, and it's a Saturday night, middle of the night, Saturday night. And we get out, and it's the building that we were going to go to in the morning, because it's the same building that the church was renting.
Oh my goodness. That's wild. Okay, so gay discotheque by night, church by day. Hey.
Yeah, it was there's in Russia, they're called culture palaces. They're just kind of theaters, and they were just renting out to whoever they could to make money. So to everyone. So that was amusing. But I was having just kind of these exciting, wild adventures, really, really enjoying it, and just falling in love with Russia. And it was at that point, and I was 18 years old, that I decided that I was going to live in Russia.
Wow. Okay, so you said that was was it a 2-month, 8-week thing that you were in Russia?
Right.
Okay, so you finish your stint there, come back several pounds lighter. Back to where? Do you go back to Ohio, or what's next after that?
Yeah, I went to Ohio for about 6 months, and I was trying to, get some financial support together. I guess I'll say, I was with an organization called YWAM, which stands for, do you know what YWAM stands for, Steve?
Yeah, Youth with a Mission.
It stands for Youth Without Any Money.
Oh, You set me up on that one.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
So
Yes,
anyway,
youth without any money. So they put you on the poster child to raise your support.
right. Yeah. It also stands for yogurt with any meal, but
Okay.
so I'm raising support, and I had to raise like $300 a month. That's what I was going to start off with.
Oh, wow.
And I got it put together. It took about 6 months.
Oh my goodness.
And I go to Atlanta, where the rest of the team that was going to move to Perm was. And we were going to go around to churches, raise support for the mission in Perm. And and we were there for a couple months. We're doing this. We're sharing with everyone, hey, we're going to Perm. We're going in 6 months. You know, we're going to leave, all of this. And I'm walking down the street by myself one day, and again, it was one of those rare situations in life where you just really hear the voice of the Lord clearly. He said to me, everyone else on the team is going to quit. You're going to be the only one left. And
Wow.
and no one had said anything about that. And I was not the team leader. I was kind of like, you know, the guy who would carry the luggage. And I'm the 18-year-old guy who doesn't speak Russian, who, you know, very few people are taking seriously.
Okay, so what was the makeup of the rest of the team at that point that was also raising support?
So there were 3 or 4 others. One of them was the American who had been living in Perm before, so he spoke Russian fluently. Highly gifted, great people. You know, so like, they were like 25 years old. So to me, they were much older and wiser, and knew everything. And so that was quite a shock for me. And at that time, I got a lot of other offers. You know, you need to go do this and that. Just go to do what everyone else does, college, and I decided I wasn't going to do that. I was going to continue to go to Russia. But what I was told was that you have to put a team together. And I thought, oh, sure, that'll be easy. But what I found, Steve, was there's not really a big waiting list of people who want to move to Perm Russia long term. And so it took another 3.5 years of living in Atlanta, taking teams to Russia. I hosted 14 teams in Perm over those 3.5 years. So I was living in Atlanta, but I would go over and I would organize for these teams. Some of them would be, 5 or 10 people. Some of them were up to close to 30 people. Some were from churches. They were from different countries around the world. And what I was doing was setting up these short-term outreaches and just saying, hey, does anyone want to live here long-term?
So how you had to raise your own support even for those 14 trips, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Or no?
Yeah, 100%.
So were you going to CMA churches? Were you just going to anybody that would say, hey, we've got a missions program? How were you doing that?
I was going to anyone with the pulse. So
trying to get support.
And looking back on it, it's just amazing, the provision of the Lord and just the graciousness of his people to invest in the vision that I felt God had given me. And really, what a risk in retrospect, this 19-year-old guy, then 20-year-old who keeps on talking about moving to Russia and being excited for me, encouraging me. What a wild thing in retrospect, because, now sitting here today in a comfortable studio, and we'll talk about all the ministry that was done over the years. It makes sense. But at the time, it made no sense at all.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you can't see into the future, and for you to be doing that does sound kind of crazy. Which brings up a question, since I'm now a grandfather. I've got kids, 3 boys. Where were your parents during all this time in terms of were they fanning your flame and saying, great, that's wonderful? Or like, what are you doing? I mean, we're CMA folk, but we're not this committed.
Right. Well, so people would ask my mom, aren't you worried? And I told you about the trip I took with the bicycling and
yeah.
And she said, if God took care of him on that trip, he'll take care of him in Russia.
Oh, good for them.
I think honestly, they were so worried about me in high school that they were just relieved that I was with the Lord.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he's a believer, so that's mission accomplished. That's great. I mean, that your parent, because not every parent has that that priority in their lives to have their parents. It's like, above all, if my son or daughter are walking with the Lord, if it's in whatever capacity, it's mission accomplished. So that's great that your parents were godly in that way.
Yeah, my dad made a comment also not too long ago, something along the lines of, there was no point in reasoning with you.
Oh, that's funny. So, okay, so you do 14 trips. And then, so when does the Frecka missionary organization finally launch in Prim?
Yeah, so one of the teams that I hosted was from Western Ukraine, and there was a young man on one of those teams. His name was Roma. And if Roma ever listens to this, I hope you'll forgive me, but he was fresh off of drug addiction, and the Lord had saved him. So he was ready to move to Russia to serve. And so that was the team, Roma and I. And
that was the entire team. That wasn't just like one of the members of the team.
No, we knew some other people were coming in a few months, but it was starting off with just he and I.
Okay.
And so I moved there in the beginning of 1999. It's funny, my dad had gotten through his work, some kind of vacation to Portugal. And I flew from the States to Portugal with my parents and my brother. And we had this amazing week of staying in 5-star hotels and, the banquets, dining, whatever. And then I had to fly to Poland, to Krakow, to get my Russian visa. And the visa, together with a visa invitation, cost me $900.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And that's a lot of money now. But that was a
huge sum then on a guy who's got $300 a month in support behind him.
Right. Well, I had more by then, but still, it was a lot. And as a matter of fact, it was so much that when I bought my ticket from Krakow, I had to go through Vilnius in Lithuania and then to Moscow. I'm on the train, and I had a total amount of 12 rubles in my pocket, which at the time was about 50 cents US. And I'm on this train, and I'm finally moving to Russia long term. And the train's, a couple hours outside of Moscow. It's morning. And I am just in the most rotten mood because I'm saying, Lord, I'm following you in this, but, I'm doing my part. You could have thought through the money. I'm blaming it on him. I'm just having this really, really non-spiritual morning sitting there.
Okay, Jonah, what did you do then?
You're right. And so and then I'm thinking, I should probably open up my Bible and read it and have a quiet time. And then I'm like, I'm not going to spend any time reading the Bible. I'd read the Bible maybe if God thought about my money situation, but I'm having this really immature, I don't know what you call it. And so, but I can't get it out of my mind. And so somewhere in the middle of this, I'm thinking, well, you know what? I am not just a Christian. I am a professional Christian. So,
okay.
So I should probably read my Bible. And again, I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm absolutely not telling anyone how to do this because this is not how you do it. But this is just a story of God's grace to me. And I'm really upset. And I said, okay, God, which is never a good way to start a prayer. Okay, God, if you want to say something, speak to me now. And I flip open the Bible, and it falls to Hebrews chapter 13. And it says, keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have. Because God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. So we say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? And that was the promise of God to me on my first day in Russia.
Wow. That is something that the Lord would do that.
Yeah.
And that
I'm not teaching how to do this. I'm just telling my story. It was his grace to me. That was his promise. He was faithful to that promise through 23 years of living in Russia, through some really, really difficult times. I'm sure we'll talk about some of those through some crazy adventures. But in the middle of that, one thing I want to highlight is Of course, there's the part that's a little bit humorous, like keep your life free from the love of money.
Yeah.
But the other part is the Lord is my helper. I think a lot of times when we think of ministry, when we think of missions, we think that we're helping God. God doesn't need our help.
Yeah.
At all.
Amen. Amen.
But it's our privilege to join with him. And he uses, just such weak people like myself to bring glory to himself. And so the Lord was my helper all those years in Russia. He's my helper today. And it was a great promise to lean on through the years.
Yeah. So, okay. So it's 1999. You're now there. One of the things that I have an appreciation of is that, after high school, I was, my background is I'm half Russian, I'm half Ukrainian. My grandparents on my mom's side only spoke a mixture of Russian and Ukrainian, and I thought, oh well, I've heard it my whole life, and I can go to school and I'll learn Russian. So I go to UC Santa Cruz and take an intensive Russian studies course and fail half of it. It was just so difficult. I do not, whether we talk about, I mentioned the Swiss cheese brain, my affinity to learn language at that point in college, which would have been 19 and 20, same time you're doing this, was shut down. Now mine was more in a classroom environment, and yours was more boots on the ground. I got to communicate to people. But even going back to the gay discotheque, how did you preach in a gay discotheque? Did you have a translator with you at that point?
Yeah, at that time I had a translator. Then over those 3.5 years of visiting all those times with those short-term teams, I picked up a little bit of Russian. But I wasn't really conversational. I could get around, get food, all those kind of things.
So you weren't going back and studying Russian in Atlanta and trying to figure it out, that at that point, or just kind of casually?
Steve, we're 35 minutes into the conversation. I think by now it's pretty clear I didn't have a plan.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. So you're just the guy in Atlanta, and you're like, oh, because in my mind, I'd be going, I got to learn how to speak Russian in this whole process.
Well, when I would go over to Russia, I was heavily immersed, so I was learning a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was funny. So I get to Moscow. I go to the ATM machine. I have just enough money in my account that had just composed to the account while I was overnight on the train to buy a train ticket to Perm. I get to Perm, and Roma, this Ukrainian guy, is there. And we were renting, it was a different hostel, but it was a hostel for factory workers who had airplane engines. And it was actually, in some ways, and due to the professions present in that particular hostel, was rougher than the one that I was in 1995. And we were paying for a room. It was the two of us, $2 per night. Oh no, I'm sorry, $1 per night. It was a different time in Russia, and so it was 50 cents per bed. And and what's amusing is we didn't have that much money, and because we were eating ramen noodles, and Roma and I were trying to communicate with each other, and I didn't really speak Russian, and he did not speak English. And so we're there in this hostel, and we're eating these ramen noodles, and we're out of money. And so I go down to the director, and at that time in Perm, a city of 1 million people, there's may the Lord forgive me for this, but there were 2 ATM machines, and ATM machines were new in Russia at that time. Okay. And so I go down there and I talk to her, and I said, well, I showed her my card, and I said, I get money by taking this card to the ATM machine. She says, yes, I've heard of this, and I said, well, I went to the ATM machine, and I put the card in, and no money came out. And I didn't explain to her that it's because there's no money in my account. I just said no money came out of the machine. Yeah. And I said, could I pay for the room when money comes out of the machine?
And being a Russian hostel person, what did she say?
She said, sure.
Wow.
So she went along with it, much to my surprise. And so the two of us are there, and Roma's like, well, what are we going to do? And it hit me. I'd never thought of that. My goal was just to get there. And so I was like, well, I guess we just pray. And so the two of us are there in this room, eating our ramen noodles, and
that you're in on credit.
Yeah.
At this point, and you're praying.
Yeah, so we couldn't really talk too much to each other. So we're talking to Jesus, like, Jesus, what do you want us to do? We're here now. And one of the things we really felt was he wanted us to do the things that no one else wanted to do. And so that kind of became the focus of every ministry we did, is if someone else is doing this, we don't need to do it. We'll support them in that. But if we see a need that no one else wants to do, that's what God is calling us to. And so that's kind of how we launched the ministry.
Wow. And I don't even know the story yet, but I know that you had some business entrepreneurial aspects to your time in Russia. And what you just described is an entrepreneur's heart, whether he's a believer or not,
Right.
is to see the landscape and to, in the context of business, to see a need that's not being met and to figure out a way how to fill that need.
Right.
And so very early on, the Lord, I think, gave you that entrepreneurial spirit, not just to make money, but to serve him in a significant way in Russia. I think it's exciting that, you guys have nothing, and yet you're developing that kind of philosophy of ministry and what you're going to do.
Right. Yeah. So we're there and we're praying, and it was a little bit embarrassing because we go to the local Russian church and they were so excited that we were there, and they're saying, "Well, what are you going to be doing?" we
Paying for the room, first of all.
Yeah, we didn't have an answer yet, but the previous summer with one of the short-term teams, we had been in this village in the north, and we had preached in all kinds of discotheques that none of the other ones were gay, like the one I mentioned earlier. But they're just like village discotheques, things like this. We would do a program. We'd talk with the young people. But in that particular village the summer before, we went to the disco at 3 a.m. And it was there that we learned that a disco that starts at 3 a.m. is very different from one that starts at 7 p.m. Because everyone who came at 3 a.m. was already the only word that's coming to mind is hammered.
Yeah, I was going to say loaded, but
yes,
yeah, same thing.
Yeah, so it's 3 a.m. We had an agreement that we were going to go up and do an evangelistic program. And it's this village discotheque, again, way up in the north. And somehow I'd been reading the book of Acts. And, Steve, if you read the book of Acts, you'll notice one thing. And it's like wherever Paul goes, there's an uproar. And I'm reading this and I'm like, God, why is it that Paul has an uproar everywhere he goes? And whenever we go somewhere, there's never a reaction. There's no uproar. It doesn't seem, maybe we're doing this wrong. And so we go into as you know, God answers prayer. And so there we are at 3 a.m. And somehow I get this bright idea of immediately suggesting that everyone repent. And so I'm like, you guys are totally lost. You need Jesus. You need to repent, and I was immediately surrounded by all these drunk guys, and they're ripping our sound equipment apart. They're grabbing the microphones and yelling the English words they knew into it, and which are not always the best English words.
Yeah.
And it's this wild thing. And they pull it all apart, and they're pushing me in this translator. And anyway, the program's come to an end, and it's over.
Did they take you out and stone you with your equipment, or no?
No,
Since you were praying for Paul, but
no, I did the right thing. I went back to the director of the disco and just started yelling at him. You promised us a program.
Okay.
So we made an agreement with the director in the back after everyone's out there dancing. I said, well, what we're going to do is I understand we're not going to be able to do a program, but I want the microphone just for 1 minute. And I'm going to tell, this is so funny in retrospect, but it's 3 a.m. I'm not thinking straight. Yeah. And I say, if anyone wants to talk to us, we'll be outside. We'll see you outside.
Oh, great.
and so it's over. It's over, right? And so I'm walking out of the disco, and this young man walks up to me and he apologizes. He says, I'm so sorry that happened. I'm so sorry that happened. That's just a few different guys. Most of us wanted to hear what you had to say. And I spoke enough Russian at the time to understand that. And I spoke enough Russian at the time to say, well, what about you? It looks like you're under the spirit of alcoholism. Would you like to be set free?
Wow.
And he says, much to my surprise, he says, yes. And so they're on the dance floor. This is so funny to me. I put up my arms. I'm praying for him that he be set free from the spirit of alcoholism. Then I'm done praying. And I said, well, are you going to repent? And he says, yes. I said, well, do it. And my Russian kind of wasn't good enough to lead him in the prayer. So I just said, do it. And he prayed to receive Christ right there on the dance floor. And,
wow.
And that was the first time I led someone to the Lord in Russian, was right there on the dance floor. And long story short, he had told us about his younger brother who was in an orphanage in a village farther to the north. And so that in 99, we had gone up there with another team. Right before I moved to Russia, I was there with a short-term team. And we're going to that village, to that orphanage, because we heard about it from this guy led to the Lord on the dance floor. And we're going into this village. It's called Nirab. And as you enter the village, it's very obvious that it's one of the hubs of the Gulag, just all kinds of prisons. There were more than 2,000 prisoners in that village. And we're on this bus, and the team says to me, Andy, we need to go in those into the prison and preach the gospel. And I said, well, we're here to serve the orphans. We're going to the orphanage, the correctional school where this guy's younger brother is. That's why we're here. And they would not let up. They're saying, Andy, we need to go to the prison. And I'm saying, wow. And I love these stories because they do not paint me in a good light. And I said, you guys don't know what you're talking about. It's impossible to get into the prisons. And they come back and they said, well, prove it. And so I said, fine. After the orphanage, I'll go in and prove that we can't go in the orphanage, into the prison.
In the prison, yeah.
Yeah. And so we go to the orphanage, we do our program. And as we are leaving the village, we stop at the prison office. And I go with Roma and our translator, Yulia, and we go up to this officer's office. And we're sitting there with the officer. And I know he's not going to let us in. And so I'm not even trying. And I'm just like, yeah, we're just a bunch of young Americans. We're wondering if we could do a pantomime for you, something like this. And I'm looking as we're having this conversation and Yulia's translating, I'm looking at Roma and I'm like, what is wrong with Roma? He's sitting there just ramrod straight, looking straight forward. And I'm like, chill out, bro. And I found out pretty quickly why that had happened, because I give my little, talk about who we are. And then the officer leans forward and he says, I now give you permission to go to all of the prisons in the region. He was a major general.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
So I come back out to the bus and I said, told you so. And so we were in that prison the next day. And so Roma and I, fast forward to Roma and I back in this hostel. We're praying about what to do. We want to do what no one else wants to do. And this pastor writes us from Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're this church and we want to bring a team this summer. And I'm not taking any of this seriously. And so I'm like, well, fine. If you want to bring a team, that's a great idea, but maybe you should come and scout it out first. And much to my surprise, he writes me back and he says, okay, we'll come next month. And so I only found out later it was a mega church. It was a very large church out of Albuquerque. I'm picturing this little Baptist church of 100 people or whatever.
Yeah.
It was a mega church. And so they're sending these two pastors and they're flying in and Roma's like, well, what are we going to do with them? I said, I have no idea.
And you're still living in a hostel?
Yeah, well, right at that point, we had moved to an apartment that cost us also about $30 a month. One room apartment, and
is it one of those Soviet era block buildings, or is it an individual house? What's it like?
Oh, it's very much a block building.
Okay, yeah, I've been in those, so I know what those are like. Little,
right. So
3 stories, 4 stories.
Yeah, it was tight in there. But probably I'm going to say about 300 square feet for the two of us.
Yeah.
Okay. So, these pastors are coming. We're like, what are we going to do? You know, and they're on their way. And so we're like, well, we're allowed to go to the prisons and that'll be impressive. So let's take them to the prisons. So they show up and we get this van and we're driving up to the prisons. And on the way, I'm not really being serious about what I'm saying, but I'm like, hey guys, this next summer when you come, we should totally plan a church up here. And I wasn't expecting them to take me seriously. And they turn around and say, yeah, let's do that. And I'm like, oh, I should stop joking around like that. And so
your cow tipping self keeps showing up in ministry, Andy.
yeah, exactly. So they show up the next summer with a team of 28 people from Albuquerque. And I just want to say that was one of the best teams I ever hosted ever.
Wow.
They were there only for 5 days. And for the first 4 days, they did no evangelism. All they did was get involved in the villagers' lives. And so they would help plant potatoes. They would weed the gardens, taught them how to play baseball, went fishing. And it was very obvious in the village that there's all these Americans walking around, and the people are saying, why are you here? And they said, oh yeah, about that. Come to the village theater on Friday. And so throughout the week, it keeps on coming up, and we're just living life with the villagers for 4 days. Well, Friday comes around and we're going to do an evangelism meeting in the village theater. And I was really full of faith that someone would get saved. So I brought 6 Bibles, 6 or 7 Bibles. And I found another Russian village pastor from a neighboring village. I said, Vlad, you come and we're going to do our little program. And at the end, you do the gospel message, call people to Christ. And he says, sure. So Vlad comes over and we go to the theater and we have our 28 Americans and they sing their songs or whatever. Well, it was standing room only. There were about 300 people there. And because they had come to see their friends, and not just because we were not passing out flyers on the street or anything like that.
Right.
It was very.
It was just because of the life on life for the 4 days that you were there that they came that 5th day. Wow. Exactly.
And at the end, Vlad gave the call to repentance, and about half the people came forward. And then he said, and now Andy will pass out Bibles.
The Bibles?
I wish I could tell you there was a miracle of multiplication of Bibles.
Yeah, I was going to say, did Jesus show up with the fish and the loaves? And
no, we were passing out pencils. We were passing out whatever we could have, and said, come over to where we're staying tomorrow. We'll give you something else. And we found some gospel tracts to hand out. But that's how that church started, and it's still there today. And so
wow, praise the Lord.
That was one of the first ministries we started, and we started it in that village specifically because in the city of Perm there was a Bible school. It was a fantastic Bible school, but we knew no one wanted to start a church in that village. As a matter of fact, it was kind of a joking threat to bad students. If you
we'll
don't
send you there to start the church.
Exactly. So we knew that was the one we wanted. So wow. that was a church we started up there. So back in Perm, the team's growing. We're starting other ministries. We started, I believe it was one of the first pro-life centers in Russia. And the Lord opened the doors where it was inside actually the women's hospital there in Perm. And wow. Women, if the doctor knew they were deciding whether to keep the baby or not, would send it to us, send the young mother to us before they made their final decision. So
basically, you're allowed to be in an abortion hospital,
yes,
providing alternatives.
Exactly.
How old are you at this point?
So I'm 22, 23, something.
Okay,
like that.
Wow, that's still early on. And
right.
Okay, and where's your Russian at this point? Are you how fluent are you?
Living with Roma helped, except for he's Ukrainian, and
I was going to say, yeah, there's that. It is, and for those of you listening who don't know, Ukrainian is different than Russian.
Yeah. So, I say that jokingly. His Russian was pretty good. Okay, but he spoke with a bit of an accent. And then the other thing he would do is if I said a word wrong, he would just start using the wrong word, and so I thought I was speaking great.
What? Just to mock you, or what? Or just because he was like he wasn't a confrontational kind of guy, or what?
Well, No, it was definitely to make fun of me. And so people would come and visit, and we're using these words, and they're like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Like, Roma, not again. So we're just praying, and God's opening doors. We working with, at the time in Russia, there was a problem with street children. They would live like in the storm sewers underground, abandoned buildings, things like that. We were working with them. We're doing all kinds of discipleship programs. We're starting to see through those discipleship programs, we're sending Russians out as missionaries, and the team grew. We grew to about 30 full-time staff.
So how are you getting your funding at this point? I mean, this all costs money.
Yeah, we're raising support mainly from American churches. And I will add that we weren't just raising our own family support. We were raising for the mission, 100% of it.
Right,
and
right.
We were raising a lot of support also for the local staff.
So were you taking trips back to the U.S.? I mean, how do you, that's no easy feat to, tell your story and do all that it takes, the dog and pony show to get people to support you. So how did that happen?
Yeah, we would go every 3 or 4 years to the States. But mainly, God was just so good. He would provide, and one of the things I learned was how to write a newsletter. When I first started out, my newsletters were so spiritual. It's like, to the churches scattered out through Asia Minor, grace and peace to you. And,
the Apostle Andy writeth to you.
Right. And there was one time where kind of early on, Roma and I we decided that it would be faster to hitchhike from Nuremberg to Perm. And this is about 250 miles. And it was just a really bad idea, and it didn't work. And, we almost died. And, when we arrived back to Perm, I couldn't walk for days. My legs were hurting so much.
Is that because you had to walk so far because nobody was picking you up?
Yeah, no one's picking us up. And then we end up in this kind of crazy old car, and these guys are driving us, and, and then they have to drop us off, and someone else picks us up, and we make it back to Perm. And I thought, that'd be interesting to talk about in the newsletter. So I write this newsletter about this story, and I don't really have a good reason to tell the story, except for this is something that happened. And everyone who received the newsletter wrote back. They were just so excited about it, and so happy. And I thought, oh, I just need to tell people what's actually happening, rather than making stuff up. And so I just began telling stories in the newsletter. And as a matter of fact, so many people asked me to turn it into a book that we eventually did that. We edited it down and turned it into a book. It's just a collection of newsletters, just different funny stories from living there. Of course, there are the stories of God's provision and his faithfulness and the ministry, but usually you're just trying to paint a picture of what life's actually like, so that the people who are supporting you can feel like they're really a part of it, rather than just, we did a Bible club and this many people showed up. I mean, That's not very interesting.
Right. So how did you build your list? I mean, who were, you spent time in Georgia, in Atlanta, you probably had some lifelong, I imagine, connections with your ministry as you were building it and going forward. But how did that list grow from there? I mean, what did that look like at that point?
There was a little bit where people would read the newsletter and they would forward it to other people. A little bit of that was happening. But really, what we would do, and God really just blessed this, when we would come to America, we would tell people, we will drive anywhere in America if you'll give us 5 minutes with any size group of people. We don't care. Wow. And we would always get the response, well, our budget's done for the year, our missions committee needs to, all these things. And we said, well, that's not our problem. Our problem is we need to share what God's doing. It's up to you what you do with that. And we will drive across America for 5 minutes with a small group. And we would ask people to advocate for us in their church, whatever the case would be. Hey, can you help us get in adult Sunday school class? We'll do the kids too. Like, we don't care.
Yeah.
And the Lord really just blessed that so much. As a matter of fact, I realized later I could not think of a single meeting we had where someone didn't end up becoming a supporter.
Wow.
And I'm sure it happened, but I can't think of a single one. And
so was your newsletter at that point, early on, was that sent by mail? Was the internet a thing enough that I'm trying to think that would have been 2001, 2.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people were probably on email. Was it an email?
It was only email.
Okay.
We didn't have another way of doing it. So we only sent it out by email. It had a real weird name. My name's Andy. My wife's name's Rachel. So we called it the Handy Ratchet Herald. And
okay, wait a minute. You just skipped over a major portion of your life. When did you pick up your wife in this whole transaction?
Oh, that part. Yeah, that's a huge part. So Adrian's here in the background running the board. He's dying of laughter. So she and I met when I was in Atlanta. She's from El Paso.
Okay.
Which is foreshadowing for later on in the story.
Yeah, I just connected a dot there. Okay.
Right. So as a young girl, God spoke to her about moving to Russia, and her friends made fun of her for it. Her parents ended up being missionaries in Moscow for a couple years in the early 90s. We met in 95 in Atlanta, and we met at a missionary bar. And I said, I ordered a glass of milk, and then I said, "Hey babe, what's your call?" And she said, "Russia." And I said, "Oh, we should do coffee sometime." And
that was your pickup line.
I just made up that. I made up that story. Yeah.
Oh, Tim, get out of here.
I love the look on your face.
Missionary bar?
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Buy some milk? What's going on?
You had me there for a while.
Yeah, so it was the time of the Olympics. So there were a lot of people there doing different kinds of ministries, getting ready for the 96 Atlanta Olympics. And truthfully, when I found out that she was interested in Russia, that did create more excitement.
Yes.
Like, oh wow, maybe God's doing something here. And we had and the other thing was it was the first time I met a girl who could really carry a conversation the way that she can. She's just like so smart and interesting, and maybe it wasn't the other girl's fault, maybe it was my fault, but it was like, hey, like we just sat here for an hour and a half and talked, and so
so you have this great connection. This is before you even go and do your whole gig with Roma then, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. So this is
okay. So you know her at that point. Okay.
Right. Mid-90s. And then she comes to me and she says, "Andy, I think God's calling me to go to college. And, someday when I write my memoirs, this is what I'll say, that those 4 years apart seemed like just a few short days because of the love that we shared. But we had a long-term relationship for 4 years. There were times because of my travel and because of the way, communication was at that time. I remember we didn't talk on the phone for 2 months. And then I was traveling through Belarus, and I found a payphone that I could make an international call in. We had 10 minutes of conversation.
I was going to say it was like a 10-minute, versus today, people listening that are younger are like, what? Why didn't you just FaceTime her?
Right, exactly. So everything costs money. You really had to put a value on it. And she went to Wheaton College, got a degree in business. So when I was there in Russia with Roma, the first year and a half, she was finishing up her degree. And then I flew back to El Paso. We got married the summer of 2000 and then went straight to Russia.
Okay. So then let me piece it together then. So Roma, that was in 2000. When did you first go to Russia? When you weren't sending teams, when you were there with Roma, what was that time frame?
Beginning of 99. And then mid 2000, we got married. Yeah.
Okay. So you go back to the States, get married, and then you immediately, or in pretty short term, return back. And now she's with you and you're doing ministry together.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So we moved there together in it would have been August 2000.
Got it. Okay, so then you're starting to crank up the newsletter. All sorts of ministry is happening. You've got a pro-life stuff. You've got a church that's been planted. You've got ministry going into the prison area there. What's happening next? What's after that?
Yeah, so we'll fast forward a bit here to around 2007, 2008. We'd bought a building. We were using it as a training center. Again, we're training Russians, seeing them go both short-term and long-term into nations that are more restricted access for U.S. citizens. And it was just a great time, a wild time. One of the teams that we had, we were looking and we realized this whole area in the north around that church plant had never heard the gospel. So these are extremely difficult places to get to. But they went to, I think it was over 2,500 homes, share the gospel individually in each house. And this took years, mind you. And gave them a Bible, share the gospel with them. So things like this are happening. The staff had reached size of about 30 full-time staff. And
okay, hold on. So what's the makeup of the staff? Is it Russian nationals? Is it Americans? Is it other countries? How many are raising support? How many are you guys paying these people? All of that.
Yeah, everyone is responsible to raise their own support. Rachel and I were helping a lot of them raise their support, put it that way. And I would say it was about a third U.S. were the staff, and then about maybe half Russia, and the rest were a mix of former Soviet states.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so at this point, early on, you mentioned YWAM, and normally a lot of times churches will send missionaries under a mission organization. Were you still in some way affiliated with YWAM, or when did that relationship break off, and when were you guys just simply solo at that point? Yeah,
well, the founder of YWAM has, Lauren Cunningham said, once a YWAMer, always a YWAMer.
Okay.
It's not an organization with real clear cut and dry boundaries. But I would say that we were in one way or another affiliated until we left Russia in 2022.
But there was not a lot of mission board oversight and care. And, here's your pension plan, and here we're providing health care for you in country. You're laughing and smiling. So I'm assuming that's no way. That's not their lane.
Right. If that's something you're interested in, you need to look for a different organization.
Okay. Got it. So you're pretty much, you're bootstrapping this whole thing, right? They've got people that, want to fan your flame and, hey, great, love, we'll pray for you and all of that. But you're not having a whole lot of back-end support other than what you're able to raise by telling your story effectively, right?
Right. That's exactly right. And then on top of that, I saw that that's kind of what was happening with the other mission centers around Russia with the same movement or organization. And I began serving them, and I was the national leader for about 12 years, providing oversight for about 80 full-time missionaries around Russia.
Wow. That's something. And you did, okay. So, go from there. So now it's 2007. You're now a much larger organization.
Yeah.
You're really having significant impact. You've got 30 people, you got a building. What's going on after that? And when do you start having kids? Remember, you got kids in this whole thing.
Right. We started having kids in 2002, our daughter, Hannah. So we flew back to the States for her to be born. And because we'd had some, I'll call them adventures
in the Russian medical care system.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And so we went to the States for Hannah to be born. But then when we were expecting our next child, Rachel came to me and she said, "I don't see why we would go to the States for 4 months for a one-day event." We had 3 boys born. Charlie, Jaden, and Benny. They were all born in Perm. wild times, and probably we could talk for another hour about how Jaden was miraculously healed as an infant, really. But we were just having our little young family, 4 kids. We're there in Perm. Things are going really well, except the problem, Steve, is this: when things start going really well, I get bored, and I started thinking
another attribute of an entrepreneur, by the way.
yeah. And so I thought I gotta figure out something else to do. So we're praying, let's go to some other city and start, a missionary work there. And I said, Lord, I'll go to anywhere, wherever you send me, I will go there. Except for there's that one place I'd prefer not to go to, but I'll go anywhere. So as you know, that's exactly where we went.
So I was just going to say, so when did the Lord send you and what is that place?
Yeah, Moscow.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's they say about 80% of the money in Russia is in the city of Moscow. It's a metropolitan area of about 20 million people. It's just a city that's busy and prosperous and doesn't understand that it has spiritual need. And so it's a very difficult place to serve. So long story short, we ended up moving to Moscow, and it was not an easy transition. It was actually quite rough, but we knew that that's where God had us. And
okay, wait, before you leave Prim and go to Moscow, what ended up happening with your relationship with Roma and his involvement in the ministry?
Yeah, so he continues as a missionary. He's in Poland now.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was such a special time there in Perm. I can say that many of the people who are a part of that team, we're all in a group chat to this day.
Wow.
We connect regularly, just deep relationships. I've married off a couple of them, officiated the ceremony. But most of them continue on in long-term ministry.
Okay. So how did you, before we leave and go to Moscow, how did you, you start thinking about, okay, I've got the itch, I'm bored, the Lord's calling me somewhere else. Are you intentionally working with leaders to replace yourself? Is that something you're doing at the beginning all the time? Because again, you haven't been formally trained. You're the guy out of high school that's just kind of doing this on your own. Or is your wife's name is Rachel?
Yes.
So did Rachel, with her Wheaton business undergrad, kind of help you through some of that stuff?
Right. Yeah. So I do want to be careful to mention that Rachel had started a teenage youth and children discipleship program that also mobilizes young people into missions, and they were sending Russian teenagers into Central Asia, places like that.
So you clearly married another low bandwidth individual.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, in her spare time, while she's having 4 kids and raising them, starting a pretty significant ministry.
Right.
Wow.
And so we spent, I want to say, almost 2 years working through the transition, and trying to make it the best we possibly could. I struggle a lot with, I've seen many times with missionaries that they'll just say, well, I'm leaving on Thursday, because they don't know how to grapple with transition.
I've seen that without going into details, but in Italy, where a significant ministry was started, and a German guy started it, and basically he was the missionary, and he dropped the mic and walked off stage, and it started its fatal descent into being shut down. Because of lack of training.
Right. And I, if I could be candid, it was not an easy transition for us.
Yeah.
And even after 2 years, it was not an easy transition for the folks in Perm. But I believe that we see still the goodness of God in it. That mission's still going today. And so we're there in Moscow, and again, it's back to the same thing, praying, what are we going to be doing here? Because honestly, we didn't know.
So you're there in an apartment in Moscow with your family, and you're just there because you feel like the Lord's called you to Moscow.
Yeah. So, one of the things was I was reading the Moscow Times, which is English language newspaper, and it's kind of fun. I was able to write some columns for them later on about cultural things and life in Russia. But I heard about this immigrant community on the outskirts of Moscow who mainly Muslim background, immigrant workers, and I thought to go there and try and find them. And so it was kind of the same thing. Like no one else is going there, so that's what we're going to do. And go there, and they were extremely afraid to interact with myself and the people I was with. And we're walking down the street, and these kids come running out, and you can tell by looking at them that they're not ethnic Russian. They're from somewhere else. And I had some staff with me, some missionary staff. They were some young ladies, and they started playing with the kids. And the kids said, well, come back again. And somehow they agreed to do that. And so we come back, and we're just out in the street, kind of just interacting. This was about a week later. And the kids said, well, come inside. And I'm looking at it, I said, we're not coming inside. They said, no, come inside. And since if I was alone, I would not have done this. But I'm with these group of younger female staff. And they said, I think it's okay. So they were Ukrainian and Russian. And so we go, it's kind of a village outside of Moscow. And we go behind this village house, and there's a whole shanty town in the backyard of Gypsy or Roma people.
Yeah, and Roma, absolutely.
Yeah. So
wow. So they were Roma?
Yes. And okay. And there's about I want to say well over 100 people living in the backyard.
Wow.
And it's raining, and I'm standing there in the mud, and there's people walking around, and I'm what am I doing here? And I'm like, well, let's go. We're here to find these, Muslim immigrant workers.
Yeah.
And this lady comes up to me out of the rain, kind of sticks her finger in my face, and she says, are you a Christian?
Wow.
And I had to be a little bit careful of my profile, put it that way. And so I'm trying to not answer the question real directly. And then she says, are you a Christian? And I said, yes, I am. She says, come into my house. You're going to teach us from the Bible. And
oh my goodness.
So, and so we go into her little, it was kind of, these little shanties made out of, pallets and things like that. We go into one of them. They all sit there. We just begin reading the Bible. And that became a ministry. Every Monday we were there. We saw dozens and dozens saved in church. And that's kind of how we planted a church among the Roma people.
Wow.
But then also in the middle of this, had a man come to me, and he shared his testimony with me. He was he had been a pimp, and he'd gotten saved. And he said, now we need to save these girls out of this. And so we started a ministry fighting the sex trafficking in Moscow, and really fighting just all forms of slavery, because it's not just the sex trafficking. It was people who were in slavery in factories, on farms, and things like that. That was an exciting ministry. At one point, I ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time. And a masked policeman put a gun to the back of my head. But
oh my goodness,
that's when I felt called to do something else. And the Russians can carry that one on.
So how long did it's Roma, the Roma is Romani the language, or
they all have their own strain of the language,
but they were speaking Russian, and you understood Russian, so you spoke Russian, so that's how you taught, was in Russian.
Exactly.
Okay. Got it. And so how long did that the Bible study go on, and the ministry to the Roma people there?
It's still going on today.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's 15 years later, 16.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
okay.
So we're saving these people out of this sex trafficking, which also I want to say is well, I guess it goes without saying, it's interesting, but I always thought that if you save someone out of slavery that they would be really grateful. That's kind of not how it works. They just assume that you're their new owner, and so
Interesting.
it is quite the journey to show them that you are sincere and that there's another way of living. And so we worked to create a home so that they could have some adaptation and get back into regular life and get into church, of course, and all of those things.
Wow. That is something. So so now how long does the ministry go in Moscow?
All those ministries are still going today.
No, but how long were you were you in Moscow until you came back to El Paso?
Right. Yeah. So I'll say in the middle of all this, and this is what you kind of referred to at the beginning of our conversation. I believe that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it.
Amen.
And another thing is, in the Russian Bible, in John chapter 1, it says, Slovo stalo человеком, which means in English we say the word became flesh, but in the translation that I quoted, which is the more modern Russian translation, it means the word became a person. And I thought about that so much. I thought, as missionaries, we also had a soup kitchen. We're doing all these things, and we know how to share the word, but do we know how to live the word, be the word? And you look at a city like Moscow, again, that is so prosperous, and how can you live in such a way that the people will know that you're not just here to tell them how to live, but you yourself are living it? And so that's really what pushed me into getting into the business space. And so parallel to the ministries we're talking about, I had opened a real estate agency, mainly providing services to probably call them high net worth individuals, but expats who had come to Russia, oil executives, diplomats. We had good relations with a few, particularly European embassies, NHL players who came to Russia to either complete their career or to start off their career in hockey. And so that was the first business that I started. And it was a great way to really connect with the community in a way that you cannot connect with the community if you're just a missionary on support running a soup kitchen.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely have a different level of access when you're doing real estate transactions. Now, that was one of the things that interested me because I'm a real estate broker in California, and there's the regulations and all that. And you had mentioned, well, it's not exactly the same in Russia. Is there licensing? Is there, could you just hang a shingle out there and put Frecka real estate and off you go?
So it is pretty easy to start a business in Russia. You talked about communism at the beginning of our conversation. Yeah. I had one European diplomat that I was finding an apartment for, and we're walking around the streets of Moscow, and he looks at me and he says, "This isn't capitalism. This is capitalism on crack cocaine." And so, it is important to understand that Russia is not a communist state; it's a dictatorship.
Yeah.
And so, within Russia, it is a lot. In many ways, it's easy to start a small business. The problem can become if the business becomes large enough to attract interest. And so, what I did is I never created a big business, although I probably wouldn't have been averse to the idea. But I created multiple small businesses. And with real estate, it was not required to have a license. It was a really simple process where you create, in the beginning, I created a sole proprietorship, later became an LLC, but it was a simplified tax system. You just had to report to the government what your main purpose was, which was real estate, and pay a flat tax of 6% on all income, which was great because there was very little overhead to put in as an expense without nerding out too much about it. But as far as regulations, there's all kinds of regulations on how the transaction would take place. But the main thing was just to make sure the contract was understood by all parties, because again, I didn't have a license, but if you mess something up, it's not so much the law would be against you, but maybe some guys in black leather jackets. So, so it was important to, really make sure everything was done above board. If nothing else, for reasons of personal safety.
So did you have employees, and were they, or was it just mainly you doing the networking thing and
it was
finding
just a
places?
few of us. Yeah, it was just a few of us. We weren't very big, but that made it where I could be flexible to do ministry, to do the real estate thing. Parallel to that, like I mentioned, I wrote some articles for the Moscow Times. I also was blogging about life in Russia, and with that, I got some interest. I did a marathon, an ice marathon across Lake Baikal in Siberia. It's 26 miles from shore to shore. Ran across the ice for the Travel Channel. Some fun things like that. But then I was asked, because of the blogging and all of that, I was asked to become kind of the American punching bag on Russian political talk shows. And these were live national channels. And it was kind of like walking into a nest of snakes, but it was also a lot of fun. And I hope that through that I was able to share the truth a few times.
So how was that gosh? So questions on that. How long did you do was it just a short stint where you were the American punching bag in this on this talk show?
Yeah, well, the more I went, the more they were trying to twist what I was doing.
So you're like, I'm not about that.
Yeah, without going into too much detail, I created a situation where they didn't invite me back. But I do want to tell a couple stories. One was 2018. I was on the Russian military channel, and it was a talk show, and the main topic they told me in advance we were going to talk about was foreigners living in Russia. Well, I was the only foreigner in the studio, and they didn't ask me. And it was my first time on the show. And so I just checked out, which was a big mistake. And mind you, this is 2018. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I'm daydreaming. I'm back in high school. I'm, and you could
tipping cows, doing whatever.
And you could also tell when you go into the studio, like where you are in the pecking order. And I'm like back row. Like I know that I'm just here. I'm like just kind of looking at my watch kind of thing. And then out of nowhere, the host says, "Andy, how will we save Ukraine?" And I thought, God help me right now. And I said, well, it's kind of sad. Again, this is 2018. I said, I have friends in Russia. I have friends in Ukraine. We see right now that we've been sitting here for the last little bit making fun of Ukraine. I assume that they have a talk show right now making fun of Russia. And I'm reminded of what someone wrote about 2,000 years ago, that all have sinned. And I'll tell you today that the United States has sinned, Ukraine has sinned, and Russia has sinned. And as long as we continue pointing our fingers at each other instead of dealing with our own problems, this situation will only get worse. And after the program, they pulled me aside to have a talk. And it was funny because I was expecting to get in trouble for quoting the Bible. But instead, they said, you know what? We're trying to have a high energy program, and you just ruined the vibe. So there was, a situation like that. And then another time they said, so since the 1950s, the United States and the Soviet Union and now Russia have had this reconnaissance agreement where the U.S. will fly planes over Russia, and Russia knows it, and they'll take whatever pictures they need, and Russia would fly planes over the United States. And the United States at that time had prohibited reconnaissance flights over Hawaii and Alaska. And, and so they bring up this question in the studio, and there's 15, I'm going to say quote unquote experts, and I'm one of them.
Yeah.
And they said, why is America no longer allowing reconnaissance flights over Alaska and Hawaii? Now, the absurdity of this is none of these experts know the answer to the question. So I raised my hand. I said, I know. And so they give me the microphone, and they said, well, why? And I said, well, I can't say for Alaska, but we as the United States.
Yes, as the spokesman for the United States here on this Russian program, let me tell you.
We are no longer allowing reconnaissance flights over Hawaii so that you don't get jealous. And
did they get the joke?
Oh, it's funny. Of course, everything's very controlled. They have producers. The whole audience is clapping and booing on command. They have producers looking through one-way glass from up above. The whole thing is very controlled. And
very Orwellian.
To say, on that program, the mic was taken away pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I've been here for some of your winters. You don't want to know that their place like Hawaii exists.
Right, exactly. So I was doing that, and then it did get a little bit bad. So I created a situation where they didn't invite me back. They were talking about conflict between the U.S. and Russia, and a producer leaned to me and she said, "Say we will destroy you." Meaning we as the United States will just, because all they're looking for is conflict to keep people, locked in. Right. And I looked at her and I said, okay, I got you. And they handed me the microphone and I said, are you all out of your minds? The moment the United States and Russia go directly into war with each other will be the end of civilization as we know it. And they didn't invite me back after that.
Wow. And not controversial enough. Which was the whole nuclear deterrence argument, on why we all need to have all this nuclear stuff. Right. Wow. Okay. So wait a minute now. Okay. So I got the talk show thing, got the real estate thing. You also told me something about a farm.
Yeah.
Is that because I keep going back to the cow tipping thing, but is that because you wanted cows, or what did the farm look like?
Yeah, well, so just we had a little trucking business as well.
Okay.
Did logistics and things like that. And
wait a minute. Trucking, was it like over the road or daily delivery?
Yeah, it was like
over
semis.
the road. So.
Yeah, over the road. Yeah.
And so was it more of a brokering business, or were you buying trucks and putting drivers in the trucks, or were you just?
It was a little bit of both. It wasn't very big, but we were. We actually only had one truck, but we were doing more logistics for other companies, getting the routes and finding the drivers with their trucks. We also did. We would rent out cars for essentially Russian Uber drivers, so that they would have a source of income. I wrote a book in Russian on business, on doing business with Westerners. And that also gave me the opportunity to speak in business conferences, things like that. Then what else was there? I was doing medical tourism. There's some different medical procedures that are offered in Russia that aren't available here in the United States.
Okay, wait, for U.S. citizens at the time?
Americans were flying in for the treatment.
And I've heard of them doing that in Mexico and in Brazil and other parts, but I've never heard of medical tourism in Russia. What procedures would I want to go to Russia for back in the day? I know things are different now.
Yeah. So, I don't recommend traveling to Russia at the moment, but
probably not.
There's a Russian doctor scientist who was a part of studying the lymphatic system in the 1980s. The Soviet Union understood things about the lymphatic system in the 80s that I saw in 2018 the United States thought that they had discovered. And so they were building on this knowledge through the years, and not just understanding that the lymphatic system functions in this way, but they were creating treatments through this. And so they were treating plaque in the arteries through subcutaneous injections, which is just what that means is just a small injection under the skin, and you would see it before and after the the reduction in plaque over 10 days of those non-invasive injections. Another is rheumatoid arthritis. I saw people with mangled hands fly in who couldn't zip up their coats, and 4 days later they had functioning hands that looked normal.
Wow.
They reversed my dad's chronic leukemia, which was proven by tests before and after in Ohio, which was considered to be impossible. So we saw a lot of
wow. I've never heard of any of that as coming out of Russia. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, it's kind of too bad that because of the current political situation, I don't see a path for that to come to the United States. But we saw quite a few people come with a condition called inclusion body myositis, which is a condition similar to ALS. It's a degenerative muscle disorder. I want to be clear that none of this is considered to be a cure, but it was affecting or influencing the symptoms in a positive way for an extended period of time that you can't have done in the States.
Wow. So you were involved in all of that. So, and continuing to do ministry at the same time, in Moscow. And then we're now getting close to, I'm trying to think back to Ukraine. We're getting close to the inflection point, right? So we're 2018, 2019, things are bumping along. You're on the show. You're the lone American. And then they asked you not to come back. But clearly Russia's thinking about, even based on the questions that you had of Ukraine, they took Crimea, right? And when did they take Crimea?
2014. And at the same time, they essentially took control of the Donetsk and Lugansk region, which is East Ukraine.
Okay. So they're already in Ukraine. And then the narrative that we had at the time was when well, I don't know is there anything you want to cover between what we've covered and when stuff where you leave Moscow, where you leave Russia?
Yeah. So in the middle of that, my wife was head of school at the International Christian School in Moscow.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a pretty big deal. Also, you mentioned the farm. During COVID, we couldn't leave our house for 4 months, and it was extremely controlled. It was a wild time. Our family just recently looked through photos of that time and looked back fondly. Fortunately, we had a house we could go to because I literally left the house, I think it was once in 4.5 months. Wow. It was tightly controlled. And so right after COVID, a friend of mine said, come up to this village, let's start a farm together. And I thought, well, I don't have a lot else going on, so that makes sense. And so we started a quail farm, and quail is kind of an interesting bird. I feel like I could nerd out about this, but we had 3,000 quail, and we would sell the meat to markets and also upscale restaurants, and also the eggs. We had a lot of quail eggs, which you need because they're really small. But we had markets buying and restaurants and friends, and we're running this farm. And then I had another TV station reach out, and they asked me to be the host of a TV prank show for one of Moscow's main TV channels. So the prank show was I had to take foreigners on tours of Moscow and show them things that don't exist. And
so you were pranking foreigners the whole time.
Yeah. And so like for the Russians, it's really funny because the foreigners are like, wow, that's amazing. Can't believe the Russians are doing this, like things like horse rental in downtown Moscow, and, just walk up to use the QR code and rent a horse. And then you get pulled over by the police and he threatens deportation. Funny things. So did 29 episodes of that, which was just a lot of fun. But we never thought we were going to leave Russia. Never thought that we would ever leave Russia. And so in 2022, I knew some things were a little bit off because I was trying to do, how should I say it? I was trying to sell some agricultural product outside of Russia, and suddenly the Russian partners went silent. and the order was very, very, very good for them. And I thought something's wrong. And I heard, kind of this rumbling, particularly from the United States, that Russia's going to go into Ukraine. And I thought, well, they'll never do that. That's the line where we draw the line. That's never going to happen. And again, we never thought we were ever going to leave. Things that felt like had been very difficult for many years, and it felt like they were coming together in a good way after all that work. And fast forward to February 24th, 2022, which coincides with Rachel's birthday. But that's the day that Russia did attack Ukraine. I'm going to get political here for one phrase. They launched an unprovoked invasion into Ukraine. And
to squash Nazism originally is what I heard.
Yeah. So, and we still thought we were going to stay because we've been through everything. But the day after we decided we were going to stay, I received warnings from 3 sources that I trusted, and they did not know each other, that we were going to be used as leverage in the situation politically. Many listeners will remember Brittany Griner,
the
WNBA player who was imprisoned in Russia during that time as leverage. She was only one of many who were imprisoned at that time. It's just she's the one who made it on the news because of her higher profile. And so after receiving those warnings, I had to come home. It was I believe it was a Tuesday, and sitting at dinner with the family, wife and kids, I said, we have to leave on Saturday. And told the kids, you can tell your friends kind of indirectly, but we can't make it real obvious that we're leaving so that they don't stop us from leaving. And you each get 2 bags to choose what to take to America with you. And we kind of had told ourselves, well, this will blow over maybe in a few months. So we'll be back. And in retrospect, I think we were just telling ourselves that to encourage ourselves. So we got one of the last flights out of Russia at that time, from Moscow into Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. And from there, we flew to Turkey and to the States, to Ohio.
Wow. So you're just going back with your kids. Are your kids bilingual at this point? Are they pretty fluent in English? Do you speak English at home? Obviously, they're speaking Russian, so they speak Russian.
Yes. So my wife was the head of the international school, so that's where they were going to school. So actually, yeah, they were required to speak English at school. So
got it. So they were educated in English.
Yeah.
Okay.
So much to their father's chagrin, their English is actually better than their Russian.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But our particularly our 2 oldest ones speak great Russian, and the other 2 remember quite a lot. But they spent so many years in the international school with international friends that
they were speaking English all the time.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so you then land in Ohio, and that's February or the first week of March of 22, right?
Yeah, it was first week of March. Yeah.
Okay, you are currently not sitting in Ohio; you're sitting in El Paso. So, and with yet another business. What a surprise, Andy Frecka and another business. So, how did you get from Ohio to El Paso? I know I'm connecting that Rachel was from El Paso, so that's probably part of the reason you landed there. How long were you in Ohio? What happened there, and how did you feel like, okay, we need to go to El Paso?
Yeah, well, we've been in Ohio about a week, and I got a message on WhatsApp from a policeman in Moscow asking me where I was. And so I had to...
Where you can't get me.
Well, actually, I said, "Pоймай меня если сможешь," which is Russian for "catch me if you can."
Really?
Which he was just doing his job, so we had a good laugh. Good guy. But I found out that they were launching a criminal investigation on me. He sent me a picture of our house, said, "Where are you?" So I had to call the people who were at the house and tell them to turn off the lights, get away from the windows. I don't know what's going on until I sort this out. Do not move. So he told me that, it's just a formality. It's nothing.
Sure. Nothing to be worried about.
Yeah, exactly. And so I said, well, that's interesting. I lived in Russia for 23 years and never had such a formality. So it was at that point that I knew that the warnings were correct and that we were not moving back to Russia. So we were there in Ohio for a couple of weeks. So we decided to go to Disney World.
Sure.
Yeah, which was now, mind you, we lost everything. And so
I was going to say, were you able to pull any money out of your businesses? Did you guys have any savings, or were you able to, without going into the specifics?
Yeah,
or was it just you got 2 bags and you're leaving?
It's very much on the end of 2 bags and we're leaving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
We were able to pull out a very minimal amount. We were fully invested in Russia. We never thought we were ever going to leave. No retirement plan, no savings. So we flew with our bags to America, kind of like, immigrants getting off the ship at Ellis Island, except the weird part is we're American, but as adults, we didn't know how to adult in America. I know Russian law better than most Russians.
Yeah.
And just simple things like how do you go to the DMV and how do you register your car, and just simple things we didn't know.
But okay, and thinking about that, I mean, your first daughter, Hannah, is it Hannah?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't write it down. Okay, that's so right. Hannah's a citizen. What about your other boys? Are they citizens?
Yeah, as far as I know. No, I'm joking. Yes, yeah. They are U.S. citizens, and they are not Russian citizens.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
You don't receive citizenship by being born in Russia.
Okay.
And I didn't want them to receive citizenship so that they could never be conscripted into the Russian military.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize how prophetic that was, sadly and tragically. But so we're there in Ohio. We have nothing. We realized we're going to stay in America. Some friends were giving us money, churches, which, wow, thank you to them.
So you living in your bedroom at your folks' house? Where are you living?
No, a family was kind enough. They were out of town and allowed us to stay at their home.
Okay.
And so we know that we're not going back to Russia. We were given a little bit of money, and I think we spent it all by going to Disney World, which was so surreal. Disney World, my wife loves it. I'll say that without really giving my opinion, but I'm
probably more on your side, whatever that non-opinion is.
Yeah. So, I mean, but it was a good time as a family, but it was so surreal, going through all of that and then seeing on our phones what was happening in Ukraine and hearing from our Ukrainian friends. We're here in the basement with the children and they're screaming and we can hear the bombing outside. And so it was very strange. But we were done at Disney World. So we decided to go to El Paso to visit some friends. We have no idea where we're going, what we're doing. And visited Rachel's folks who are not far from here in New Mexico. And I remember we're just sitting on her folks' back porch with our family, and we're deciding what are we doing next? Are we going back to Ohio? We were offered a house up there, and I'm plenty of connections. So, and I don't know. I think we were just tired of driving, and so we decided to stay. and also it was like Rachel's good friends growing up are still here in El Paso. It's like, I guess El Paso it is. And so we decided to stay. Rachel had found work. She's been the head of school at local Christian school here in El Paso. Okay. I was looking for any kind of work, and what I found out, Steve, was that although I'm highly skilled as a Russian prank show host, that skill is not immediately transferable to El Paso.
Yeah.
And so I have 4 hungry kids looking at me, like, how do I put food on the table? And so I became a solar panel door-to-door salesman. And God's faithful to prune us, Steve, and to knock us down a few notches. And it was a very, very rough time for me. Just really, do I really believe that my identity is only in Christ, in Him alone, and not in all those great things I did in Russia or even Russia itself? And here I am standing at a house with people who don't understand how an electric bill works. telling me that solar doesn't work, and feeling like I'm having a pointless discussion with somebody.
Yeah.
But the other thing that happened in that is I really got to know El Paso, because I had hungry kids. I had to knock a lot of doors. And what I saw was America has changed a lot over the years. And so I'd be in these neighborhoods, and I would be overcome with a sense of hopelessness, because you would see, door-to-door salesmen intentionally show up at dinner time. And so you see the cars coming into the neighborhood, the garage door opens, the car goes in, the garage door closes. They're in their house with their DoorDash and their Netflix, dying of loneliness and wondering what life is about, and get to know these people and all the struggles they're going through, which is what happens when you're selling solar panels and run credit. You get to find out all the everything they're going through,
how rough life is, and how they're one paycheck away from the wheels falling off the bus.
Yeah, exactly. And in the middle of all this, Rachel said, you should read the Bible. No, she said, Jeremiah 29. And it was, when you get to the city, you've been exiled to. And that's very much how I felt. It says, plant gardens, build houses, give your sons and daughters in marriage. And I began to realize you might be in a situation that you didn't ask for, but in that situation, you absolutely need to invest yourself fully and not just wait for the next thing. And so, okay, I understand that. And then the next verse says, seek the welfare of the city and pray to the Lord on his behalf, because the welfare of that city is your welfare. And I thought, well, okay, I'm here in El Paso. How can I seek the welfare of El Paso? And the only thing that could come to mind was this radio station.
Wow.
And so
wait, how long did you sell solar panels? How long was that door knocking adventure?
Steve, that is one of the main parts of my life I would love to forget, but it was about a year and a half.
Wow. I thought you were going to say like, oh, that was the longest 4 months of my life. No, but a year and a half. I started in sales, and although I've never door knocked. No, I have. That's not true. I door knocked for a company called Reach Local, selling pay-per-click advertising. But one of my first jobs out of school was making 100 calls a day, trying to get people into IBM seminars to sell the idea of having a computer. And I did it for a full summer in college, and it was the longest 3 months of my life. Just the rejection after rejection. It was awful. So for you to do it, I mean, kudos to you for being able to endure for a year and a half, which means you also went through El Paso summers, knocking on doors and doing all of that.
It was rough. I mean, there were times where I was getting heat exhaustion. I would have to, run over to the gas station, get a Gatorade, try to keep my head from spinning.
Plus, I imagine, were you just straight commission? Or were you paid
straight commission?
Yeah, so it's straight. You're not making money unless that solar panel hits that roof.
Right, right.
You gotta keep going. Oh,
right. In the beginning, it actually worked really well, but then interest rates went up quite a lot, and it became very, very difficult. So, anyway,
okay. So a year and a half, and then radio station. So how did that phase come in?
Right. So this radio station is Legacy Teach and Talk. It's been around for over 40 years. The guy who started it had passed away about 6 years previous. He's kind of a sort of a legend in Christian radio. He started the first Christian contemporary music station in America.
Wow.
He was a part of producing Chuck Smith back in the beginning.
Yeah.
But he had passed away. His wife, hats off to her, kept the station going, and was just looking for someone to take over. And so we came in and we said, it seems like something we know how to do.
Yeah, quail eggs, real estate, medical tourism. Yeah, I can do this. Talk show, crank host, all done in Russian, by the way. And yeah, I'm perfectly equipped to run the radio station in El Paso.
Right, exactly. So
solar salesman.
Right.
God clearly gave you the perfect experience to do this job.
Yeah, so that's how I ended up here, and it's been really, I'll put it this way, an exciting year and a half, going on 2 years now, and it's been so much fun learning how to do this with no background. Steve, you're in Christian radio, so that when you meet with people who are in Christian radio, so many of them grew up like playing with transistors. I don't know.
Yeah,
like in that world, always wanting to do that. It never crossed my mind. And if I can confess a sin, I never listened to the radio till I came here, and it was just like God spoke, so we're going to do it. And so jumped right in.
Well, that's wonderful. But you bring, I can imagine, with your entrepreneurial spirit and a new perspective, and yet a love for the community. I mean, that balance of, doing things that other people aren't doing. I think that's part of what God has gifted you in being able to use you in that way. So I'm excited to see, what he's going to do with you in El Paso.
Right. Yeah. It's a fun challenge. Kind of our vision is to engage the curious and equip the committed for Christ. And so everything we do, we're looking at the person driving down I-10 through El Paso who does not yet know the Lord, flipping through stations. How can we engage them? And then for those who have been with the Lord for 90 years, who got saved when they were 5 or whatever, how can we equip them? And it's quite a challenge to create content that does both simultaneously. And I don't know that we do it perfectly, but that's what we're aiming for.
Wonderful. Engage and equip. I like that. That's what you want to do. And you're an encouragement to me as a brother in Christ in the way you ministered by faith and stepped out, and the way the Lord provided. I mean, you did things and you're like, I'm not talking at your funeral. I mean, the Lord still has more for you to do, but you did things in life that I never even dreamed of doing. And the way you ministered by faith is just such an encouragement to me.
Well, Steve, it's interesting for me. I do struggle with insomnia from time to time, and I lay there in bed and look back at all those memories. They almost don't seem real, even to me. But I know that anytime we spend our lives with the source of all creativity, our Heavenly Father, life is anything but boring. So I'm looking forward to I'm enjoying what I'm doing now and also looking forward to the future. If you're ever in El Paso, know that we are the place where the first Thanksgiving in America happened. We are the world's largest borderplex, and I believe that El Paso has a very distinct calling. We're America's most bilingual city. As if God could move in Perm, Russia, he can certainly move in El Paso. So
Amen.
Looking forward to what he has for our community. Thanks again, Steve. Really appreciate you. As we always say, let's learn to love our city and love our neighbors and give God all the glory. This has been 915 Talk. You have been listening to 915 Talk, a production of Desert Voice Media. To listen to this or any previous edition of 915 Talk, just visit desertvoice.media and click on the 915 Talk link. Let's continue to learn to love our city, love our neighbors, and give God all the glory.